correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, because you're the expert. I'm far from it, but it's sort of like Sora for property flyby, right? Where you get a really dynamic ability to be Superman and fly around the neighborhood and take a look at things. Is that a fair?
Yes. There's one important distinction though, where like Sora is effectively hallucinating everything.
Yeah, correct. It's all made up. This is real. Yeah, this is real. Yeah.
You talk about it privately. We talk about it publicly. This is the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered Podcast. Welcome again to the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered Podcast. I'm your host, Dwiggy Dwiggins, along with crazy Uncle Keith.
Yes, sir.
So, there's never a dull moment in residential real estate news headlines.
Thank God for podcasters.
So this episode, we have Errol Samuelson, Chief Industry Development Officer, back on the pod. You guys have seen him before, but the new guest is Josh Weisberg. He's the Senior Vice President of AI for Zillow to talk about
all the things.
Zillow moved to ChatGPT. So give us the insight on that.
We did talk about their announcement where they are embedded inside of ChatGPT now. We, of course, had to talk about some of the MLS compliant noise and the what I will call lovingly the industry freak out when this announcement happened. We spent some time on the tension between the speed of tech and the speed of our industry and how those two things fit together and don't fit together.
And don't.
Yeah. The future of AI, what search in the future will look like. It was great getting Errol on to talk about how they went through this process and dispel some of the myths. And it was awesome to have Josh on and have a real thoughtful discussion around search in the future and what it could look like. You're going to dig this timely episode. Put it in your ears, kids.
Gentlemen, welcome to the show. We are excited to have you because, as usual, there is no shortage of drama in residential real estate.
I feel like we open every show that way.
I mean, it's a headline every week. That is for sure. Hey, so let me just start with this real fast. For viewers and listeners, we're going to spend time with these two gentlemen talking about the new app they built for ChatGPT. We are not going to be addressing all the questions that you have about lawsuits and everything else, because we know we're going to have people asking us that stuff. That is not what these two gentlemen are for. So it's going to be very focused on AI and ChatGPT. Just wanted to get that out of the way so everybody knew as we started the show. So Errol, thanks for coming back. We're excited to have you. We have got lots of questions. And Josh, welcome to the first episode with us. We're excited to have you here as well.
Thank you.
So Josh, you are the, if I got this correct, Senior Vice President of AI for Zillow. Is that right? Yep. All right. For viewers and listeners who don't know Errol, you've been living under a rock. But beyond that, if you want to learn about Errol, we've got some other episodes. We've had him on that you can hear his background. Josh, we're going to start with you before we dive in, just to get a little bit of a little Q&A on who you are. Could you give us just real quick, 2-3 minutes background, experience, what you do now at Zillow, et cetera, and we'll dive into some questions.
And do you work for Skynet? That's the other thing we need to know.
Well, I work for Zillow.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Skynet's later. That's right.
Yes, Skynet. We're building it. Yeah. Okay, so I actually grew up in Silicon Valley. I like to joke I had a camera in one hand and a computer in the other, and studied color and imaging at school. Did a startup at a school that did well. Then went to Apple for a number of years, did some more startup stuff, and then spent 15 years at Microsoft. I did about 4 years in Windows, which is like the biggest, most complex piece of software ever, I think. Spent about 5 years on robotics, and then about 5 years doing computational photography. So started in AI about 2014. Back then we called it machine learning, and we were actually working on something called deep learning, a little more sophisticated form of machine learning. But spent most of my career on early stage technology, so like pushing the state of the art. And then joined Zillow in 2018 and created a team that builds all of our rich media experiences. So think interactive 3D floor plans, Sky Tour, our 3D Gaussian splat experience, virtual staging using AI. And then about 2.5 years ago, stepped into this role leading AI across the company. So everything from the OG AI of Zestimate to the new Zillow app on ChatGPT.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you a photographer on the side? I think I read somewhere that that's your passion.
Yes, I've been doing photography since I've been, I don't know, like 5 years old. I spent about 6 years as a photographer for the Seattle Seahawks and Seattle Sounders.
Wait, what? You should have led with that, Josh. Like, forget all the other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
It was always something I wanted to do. It's kind of a funny story, but the short version is when I was in high school, I wanted to be a photographer because, well, that was a good way to meet girls. My parents were like,
My man.
might be a better career if you went into tech, right?
I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. And, but then I had this opportunity. I mean, like I've always been into photography, but I had this unique opportunity. So I spent about 6 years doing it, and it was a lot of fun. And then I realized that my parents steered me in the right direction.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
They always
Did you
come
in the
in.
rain for 12 hours at a Seahawks game.
Did you take the photo behind you?
I did not. A friend of mine did.
Nice.
But on the other wall, the year the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, the center spread of the Sports Illustrated Super Bowl edition is my photo. I have that framed on the other wall.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Last one before we get to the important stuff. Were you at the game when they didn't run it with Marshawn Lynch and threw that slant pass, or no?
No, I did not get to go to either Super Bowl. But the game against the Packers where they came back,
Yeah.
like they were 24 points behind or something.
Yeah,
that
something
for me was
crazy.
better than the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
All
where Errol and I have no idea what's going on right
Yeah,
now.
we'll get back to the important
yeah,
stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah. Smile and nod, boys.
This
Smile
is where
and
we
nod.
just smile and tap dance. Like we know what they actually are talking about. So yeah. Josh, thanks for that. And congrats on the career, man. That's awesome. It's got to be really exciting and seeing all the innovation. I know as in the green room, I was telling everybody at some point this is going to turn into the Keith and Josh podcast.
Yeah. Let's get there.
Which we'll get to on AI and where it goes. All right, guys. So look, we first of all, I did want to say congratulations on the new ChatGPT app that you guys have put together. I was watching the demo on it. I read a bunch of stuff with Sam talking about it in Stretchery. For those of you that don't follow that blog post that they do, it's really cool.
Yeah,
and so congrats on the innovation, genuinely. So, and you know, the industry, like in everything, loses its mind anymore these days. So I wanted to start and just get some of the hard hitting questions, if I can, out of the way first. You know, to address that, and then we'll kind of go towards what you built, and then what you see as the future. We really want to get one of the most innovative companies in the world to talk about what they think search will look like. So let me. I asked on social media. Boy, that was a stupid thing, but
a great place to go to formulate
I asked on
our
social
questions.
media to post your questions, and I had an unimaginable amount of inquiries and DMs on it. But let's start here. So
ChatGPT to summarize all of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Maybe we should create an app around that. It'd be interesting. All right. So look, there's a lot of people that are stating that this was not done with any of the MLSs involved. I'm summarizing here on a lot of these statements. So can you give us some background, just maybe starting with like where this started and then how it evolved to the details that you can, and then where MLS is involved, obviously, and et cetera. So I don't know who wants to take that, but let's start there. So.
Yeah. Let me start, and then Josh, you can jump in as well. So this started when OpenAI, who is the company which runs ChatGPT, approached us and said, we're going to do something which, at least in my opinion, is a very sort of monumental shift in terms of what they were doing with ChatGPT. Up until now, it was a machine you could ask questions, it would give you answers. You could use it a little bit like a search engine. I tend to use it these days more than I use Google, to be honest. But they said we are now thinking of ChatGPT as a platform or like an operating system where you can actually now run apps inside ChatGPT. And we're going to announce this at our upcoming Developer Day. And we'd like to work with a handful of leading companies to build some apps to demonstrate the power of having an app inside the ChatGPT environment. So instead of just being like an answering machine, it's now like an operating system on your iPhone. You can load apps, you can do a lot more. So that's a big shift, and we were super excited and honored, quite frankly, to be asked by them to do something. And when we decided to embark on the journey of building the app, we're familiar with the 500 MLSs that we get data from today, and each MLS has slightly different IDX rules. And we, in fact, for Zillow.com on the web and our mobile apps, we've actually built a rules engine. So depending where you are in the country, the underlying rules engine contains all of the local IDX rules, and we adjust the display to make sure it works. So we started with the people who had built the IDX displays inside the company to say, okay, how do we make sure that in this new app, in this new environment, we can respect the IDX display rules and also ensure that the MLS's data is protected. We then worked with our legal team to get their input because they worked on all these IDX agreements. And then we actually have a couple of people inside the company who used to run MLSs, former MLS CEOs. We spoke with them as well to make sure we got this right. So Josh's team built this app. We believed that we had done the right things to protect the MLS data and follow the IDX rules, but we realized we wanted some outside input. Now, the challenge here is that OpenAI does not want news of this new incredible shift to leak. And so we went to them and said, listen, we really need to speak with a few people. And I mean, it was unorthodox, but they said, we understand. Okay. So you need to get them under, very strict non-disclosure agreements and go check with them. So we actually met with a group of MLS attorneys who represent various MLSs around the country. We had about 5. The group that we spoke with would represent, I think, somewhere between 30 and 50 MLSs around the country. And Josh and our team walked them through the app in painstaking detail and said, do you see anything here which might cause a problem, where either we're not following the rules or somehow we're not respecting the MLS's copyrights, or we're not providing the proper attribution, or do you see any problems whatsoever? And they gave us some great feedback. At the end of the session, they said, this looks really good. And we said, fantastic. And so then it was after that, it was about a week and a half after that, that was the developer day, and we demonstrated the app. So it was a painstaking process, both internally and with external advice to make sure we were following the rules.
So I want to double click on a few things. So I've seen a lot of people posting the NAR's IDX policy rulebook, or rules, I should say.
That's a fun post.
Which I'm going to get into in a minute anyway, because I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to share some thoughts on some things as well with my franchise or broker hat on, by the way. But so you mentioned that each MLS has a slightly different implementation to some degree as far as rules. Is that, and what I'm paraphrasing, but the way that the display happens can vary by MLS. Is that correct?
Yes. And even in fact, in neighboring MLSs. So you might be, in one geography, you scroll the map and then the rules will change.
And can you give me just a real quick example? Because I want to get this to somewhat simplistic form for agents that don't know about all these rules. What is an example of what that might be? Is it just like phone number displayed versus not, where it's displayed, attribution? Like, what does that mean?
A great example, although this rule recently got revoked, which was a good thing, was the no commingling rule, which said that you cannot show MLS listings alongside other listings. And so we would have to have different rules depending on where you were in the country. That rule, like I said, has been revoked, but that would be a good example.
Took long enough. Okay. One other question. So OpenAI mentioned this, and you kind of repeated this. OpenAI is looking at itself. I'm guessing this is more of a strategic play of themselves as an operating system down the line. I've heard that word used a few times. Can somebody go deeply on that in it? Like, go deeper on that?
Yeah, and I would just say that that's my description of it.
Got it. Okay.
But I will give you an example. On the demo day, in addition to demoing the Zillow app, they also demoed Spotify sitting inside ChatGPT, and they announced a number of other partners like DoorDash, Uber, OpenTable, Expedia, Target, where you can access, for example, the Expedia app inside the container of ChatGPT. Yeah. Josh, why don't you go a little deeper on that?
Yeah, and I think in Sam's interview with Ben Thompson, and I don't know if it's strategery or how exactly you pronounce it.
Yeah, sorry, I may have said it wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'm not sure what the right way is. Yeah. They talk about this, right? Where Ben Thompson says, hey, this feels kind of like Windows and you're building applications on top of it, right? And I think that's what it feels like to us, where we control the experience. And that I think if you think about the capabilities you want to add to AI, like if you were going to go and try to do something in real estate, starting from scratch would be extremely difficult. Or you could work with the industry leading AI company that has the brand and understands how the industry works, and have them bring their experience onto your platform, feels a lot more compelling.
Can I ask it in like crazy Uncle Keith caveman simple? I mean, I listen to Spotify, but I listen to it through Google, right? If that makes sense, right? So
I use it on my iPhone.
Right, exactly. So you've got these different operating systems, but Spotify operates on these different operating systems, whether it's inside of Google, inside your iPhone, inside these different places. Same Spotify showing up in different spots with probably different, approaches and programmers and a bunch of smart guys with propeller hats on that are figuring out how to make it all work. But if you think, the way I think about it is Spotify is where I go to listen to music. I can go to a lot of different places to listen to Spotify. This is sort of Zillow's version of doing the same thing. Is that a fair?
Yes. Well, I would say this is OpenAI's version.
Version.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I get into my car and my car has Spotify in it.
Right.
And it looks and feels a little bit different, but I'm listening to the same music. And Spotify is still dealing with all their I'm sure they have their own music industry equivalent of.
I'm sure they do. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it's not like Spotify is just saying, oh, here, OpenAI, take all our music and do whatever you want with it. No, they still have to have the rights to that music.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go down that conversation real fast. So again, I've had, I can't tell you how many questions basically stating that statements violating IDX MLS agreements because you're sharing data with OpenAI. So can you respond to that and try to get as specific as you possibly can?
Sure. Well, let me start with, we've been working with them for several years, right? And there's other announcements we made with them. And when they came to us and they said, hey, we're thinking about doing this, they recognized real estate was complex, right? And so before they had written any code, we were having conversations with them about how we could build this. And we were very upfront with them that the only way this was going to work was if they agreed that they wouldn't use any of the data to train their models, right? They agreed to that. They agreed, we said, hey, look, not all of this data is ours. MLS data, we have to provide attribution. They said, yes, okay. And if you go into the app, you'll see that. And we said, hey, this has to be fair housing compliant. And they said, oh, can you help us with that? And we've done that, right? So I think it was a deep collaboration, and that they've been very respectful of the different industry rules and data privacy and federal laws and so on. And I think that's reflected in the app. So how does it work? So I'll talk about maybe three concepts. So prompt, right, which is what you type into ChatGPT, right?
Yep.
It's kind of a fancy way of saying the question. There's context. So context is, hey, the four of us are having a conversation about this new app that we built. And then there's what we call persistent memory. We'll call that memory for short, which is what the AI remembers about you, right? Like you like chocolate ice cream. I work at Zillow, et cetera. I used to be a photographer for the Seahawks, et cetera, right? So the way this works is when the user types in a prompt, ChatGPT will disambiguate that prompt.
What's that mean?
It will break it down and it will understand what the real intent is of what you're asking.
Okay.
And there's two ways you can use the app. One is you can explicitly call it, right? The equivalent of going to your phone and clicking on the Zillow app, right? So if you say Zillow, you'll notice it'll turn blue and it'll bring up a little Zillow logo or icon, right? And then it'll say, okay, I know you want to ask Zillow a question. Or if you ask it a real estate prompt, it in some cases will say, I'm going to send that to Zillow. And we can come back and talk about non-determinism and those sorts of things.
Okay.
When it invokes our app, either explicitly or implicitly, it pops up a Zillow app, right? It gives us context. It doesn't give us the prompt. It basically says, this person is, looking for a house in this neighborhood with these characteristics, or, they're interested in finding information out about a neighborhood. So they don't give us the full prompt and they don't give us any of the personal information about that user, right? So that comes to us. We do what we normally do. It's full Zillow end to end under the covers, right? So we then respond to that search query or we respond to that prompt about financing and we present that within the context of the Zillow application. That makes sense so far?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Keith, anything?
No.
Good? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Now, the cool thing is if you've used this, you can go full screen, right? There's a little, expand button in the upper right. And it's Zillow takes over the whole experience. And you'll actually notice in that case that the little prompt window now says Ask Zillow, right? So you are communicating directly with us. ChatGPT is orchestrating this, right? Like we're using their models under the covers to do a lot of this work, but we're not sharing any of the data with them, and they don't have any rights to use that data.
Okay. What data? So when you say data, I'm assuming referring to listing data. Is that
it could be listing data, it could be rentals data, it could like any of the information that we would normally provide you if you're using the Zillow app. We don't give them. And they have no rights.
Maybe.
So I think this is really important here. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you've got the app, right? And within the walls of that app, the customer is communicating with Zillow. Okay. The app is hosted inside of the ChatGPT environment. But when you see that little box inside the Zillow app that says Ask Zillow, that's going to Zillow. Okay. When the MLS data comes back, it's displayed inside our app. That data is not being used by ChatGPT to be stored or to be trained on. We keep that data confined inside the app, which is why this is really analogous to an app that's on your iPhone. We control the experience. Data is going back and forth to Zillow, the Zillow servers, and then the Zillow app. And one of the things, for example, and Josh, maybe you're going to get to this, that we're really careful about is, for example, we don't share any personally identifiable information with ChatGPT. In fact, they told us we don't want that information. Okay. So it's really, once you've invoked the app, it's the app talking to the Zillow servers back and forth.
Yeah, I think you can really, the metaphor here is ChatGPT is like the operating system, right? The Zillow app on my iPhone uses services that Apple provides in order to do certain things, right? Because we haven't built our own operating system, our own phone, right? And in the same way, that's how we're leveraging ChatGPT. And I think what's interesting is a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago, we shipped a new app on a new platform. Like it was new hardware, it was new operating system, had a new app store, and everybody was fine with that. And that was called Apple Vision Pro.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
I remember when you guys did that. Yeah, Errol talked to us about that last time he was on. Yeah.
I've had these questions and I've been talking with people about this, and for me, this is an easy concept. I'm also pretty simple when it comes to this stuff. Like it's a new environment. You built an app specifically for it, just like you build an app for an iPhone, one for Android, whatever it is. I mean, I think it's a fair question for people to ask, what are you doing with the data? I think it's a very fair question for anyone to ask because as you know, with MLS, it's not your data. It's a combination of everybody's data, right? And so it's not an unfair question for people to be asking. But in my mind, as long as you are following those rules and it's in the environment you are controlling, from what I've understood from just reading those policies, and you're not transmitting that data to ChatGPT, and they're not storing data they don't have a legal right to have access to, then I'm struggling to see where this is an issue. This is just James Wiggins speaking, but I'm failing to understand where this...
People saw a 15-second blurb and, in the announcement and made a bunch of assumptions, which is okay. That's the world we live in today. And then they go to social media and start hammering on the keyboard. But to me, we can get to it later, but I mean, what's getting lost is the human being that we represent as an industry, right? Like, what do they want? And how do they want to approach ChatGPT and real estate in the future? And that matters too.
I have one question. Go ahead, Errol.
Jump on that real quick before I forget. Look, this platform, ChatGPT, has 800 million weekly users. Okay. Yeah. It is the fastest adopted technology that humankind has ever seen. Mm-hmm. More than the phone, more than the internet. So this technology is not going away. All right. This is how consumers are starting to interact with their world. I think what was great is that we were able to get a seat at the table, and we were able to talk to the folks at OpenAI and say, here's the construct. Here are the rules that you're going to need to follow to have a real estate experience. And so we built something which actually is industry friendly, does give attribution to the MLS, does protect the data, does observe fair housing rules. So now those 800 million people can get access to the MLS data, and the MLS is the source and it's getting attribution as the source, but it's done in a respectful way. So I think this is a net positive for the industry. And
I agree with you. I'm going to add two comments. So one is I love the fact that, so I want to make sure all the MLS execs are hearing this because I think it's a point we're missing. There's been all these conversations about where ChatGPT is getting its data, and like we've seen hallucinations. I'm using simple terms here, Josh. Don't get mad at me because I know I'm talking like in really layman's terms here, but we're seeing all this inaccurate stuff. I think there's a key point, Errol, you're making, which is the MLS is becoming the source of authority here by doing this. Like you're actually bringing the data that the industry is responsible for of trying, and we've been working forever, as long as we don't destroy the very thing we've created, different podcasts. But that whole point of that's becoming the source. I do have a question though. I'm putting my broker franchisor hat on now. And I think this is a very fair question to ask. And there's going to be two. The first is OpenAI going to make this available for everybody to do? And I'm asking the question because as a franchisor, I have 10,000 listings in MLSs across the US. Right now, while I am happy the innovations occurred, candidly, if Zillow is the only company that has that is potentially an issue for me because I'm a member of the MLS just like you are. And, this isn't a question you maybe can answer, but in my mind, I'm going, is it going to be exclusive for you guys, or is it something that the whole industry can innovate on so that there is an equal playing field? Any thoughts or comments there?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously can't speak on behalf of OpenAI, but I think Sam did say in his keynote that they would in the future open this up to other companies. And I would fully expect that other real estate providers would build on top of it.
Okay.
I would say that I do think that we have established the guardrails with OpenAI, like all the things Errol talked about, like
which I agree with.
Has to have attribution, has to be fair housing compliant, right? We've paved the way for that. And this was pretty technical, right? I mean, we literally had quite a few Zillow engineers working side by side with OpenAI engineers. And I think we've also hopefully made it easier for other companies to do this.
I'm in complete agreement with you because candidly, our industry's got so much politics and bureaucracy. We would figure out 10,000 reasons why we couldn't do it before we would actually create the innovation to do it. And thank you for that setup, Josh, because now I'm going to lead you to my second question. And this is probably more for Errol. Look, I've had so many conversations. Well, this is a big one. I've had everybody calling me, telling me why this is bad. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. And let's get these questions answered, which is why you gentlemen are here. And thank you for that. Secondarily, I'm going to put my broker franchisor hat on. I'm sitting here going, why are we looking at it this way? To your point, Errol, 800 million people, is it a week?
Every week.
Yeah.
Every week, which is in its infancy of where we are right now in an AI world, are on this platform. And we're getting mad at you guys because it's easy to do about, what you've done. And I'm sitting here as a franchisor broker going, where have we been the past 2 years to have a conversation internally about how to innovate in a way that we are the industry, whatever that means, the ones that are out there figuring out a way to get on these platforms. So this is my question for everybody, including MLS executives, board members, association presidents. The whole industry needs to ask these questions. Is our MLS policies and structure that everyone's freaking out about in their current capacity inhibiting innovation in the space? Like, are we actually cutting our own feet off because we're not thinking about how to adopt and mold these policies so that we can innovate as technology moves faster than our industry is? And so, question, whoever wants to answer it, is that a question we should be asking? And if so, Errol, are there examples of things that we should be looking at?
Yeah, great question. And I just wanted to hit your previous question as well, which is today, yes, Zillow is the only real estate app, okay, in this environment. But I would fully expect that they are going to open this up to other companies. And I'll give you an example why I believe that is in their launch, they had 3 travel companies, Expedia, Booking.com, TripAdvisor. Okay. So I would expect that over time, other real estate portals, other large, franchisors will be able to similarly build apps the same way as you have multiple apps on your iPhone. You might have a Realtor.com app or a Zillow app. I would fully expect that. I think the key here is what Josh said, which is we were able to pave the way. So we were able to help them understand that real estate is complicated, it's regulated, that there are these rules, so that the next person who shows up at their door when they open this up doesn't have to have those conversations again. Now, to the rules, to your point, yes, the way that the rules are structured today, it makes it more difficult to innovate. I talked about how we have to have this really complex software under the hood, which adjusts the Zillow display depending where you go in the country. That took a lot of money and a lot of engineering effort to build that. If you're a startup, with only 15 employees, that is a massive barrier to entry. It's a huge cost you have to bear before you even start innovating. Okay, and so then the question is, well, how do you change the rules? Well, today it's a very complicated process. So there's a group at NAR called the MLS Technology and Emerging Issues Advisory Board. That's literally the name of the committee.
I couldn't find a longer one.
Well, it wouldn't fit on a business card,
right?
And look, these are volunteers who do a great job, but once they come up with recommendations, then there's like a multi-step process for a rule to get changed. So I think that the rules should be standardized, and I think that the process should be streamlined. Now, not so streamlined that rules can be changed every 6 months and vendors are whipsawed either. But I think there is room for innovation here. I really do.
I'm going to make a statement that I think is incredibly important. The past 2 years, I've done more keynotes than I want to even talk about, and I've met more people at MLSs and associations who are good people. They try very, very hard. But I will say there are way too many unqualified people sitting on committees and association boards that do not know what the hell they're doing, making decisions. And I worry that that's going to continue to cause our industry not to be thinking more about the future.
James, I'll piggyback on that. It's not... Our industry moves at the speed of paper, and the world moves at the speed of the internet. And it has always been a problem. But with the pace of change,
it's only getting faster.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like Josh and I are going to talk later about the fun stuff, right? About how this can change search and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
The pace of change is accelerating, and real estate as an industry has got to figure out, and I'm not saying this is easy, because those people that you talked about, those good people, are really trying to advocate for their constituents.
For
right?
sure.
They're listening to the people that they represent and trying to advocate for them. And we have this giant miss, like we're talking past each other, because the industry has got to figure out how to get comfortable with the pace of technology that is here. It's not coming. It's here right now. And if we don't get comfortable as an industry and come up with ways that work for us, then this is going to be what will happen.
It frustrated me, Keith, the conversations the past few days.
Sure.
Is everyone's in this scarcity mindset. And I'm just so tired of, I'm sitting here going, yeah, okay, fine. We'll ask all the questions. And
yeah, I'm not surprised people are freaking out, because this is like the double whammy, right? You have Zillow and OpenAI at the same time. Like, those are two hot buttons for people.
Fair.
And now you're smushing both the hot buttons, right? But to me, go ahead.
Well, we're talking a lot about MLS data. I want to bring up another example, which is fair housing.
Mm-hmm.
And from an AI perspective, fair housing is technically complex.
Yeah.
Right. And I can give you some examples because we're monitoring the interaction and some of over the last years, we have built a series of AI models that I collectively call our fair housing classifiers. Right. And so what they do is they take prompts or context and they look for things that are fair housing violations. Right. And these are, they basically come back with a probability of this being a fair housing violation. And it's difficult. There's a lot of nuance. Some examples, right? Like if your name is Christian, right? And you're like, I'm Christian, I'm looking for a house. AI is like, wait, you're talking about religion. That's a fair housing violation, right?
That's a really good example.
Yeah.
One that we reviewed with OpenAI a few days ago was somebody was saying, I'm looking for a home near the Transamerica building, right? And we don't get the full, now remember, we don't get the full prompt, right? So we get as context, and the context includes trans in America, and the fair housing fair housing violation, right? Now the good news is, it's better to have a false negative, right? And so we'll continue to work on this. But this is really important. We have a lot of resources working on this, but we've open sourced this. We've released these classifiers as open source. that anybody can use, because like it's really complicated. It's also really important. And for me, it's more important that everybody have a fair housing experience than we have some competitive advantage in doing this, right?
Hey, Josh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Genuinely. That's a very personal thing for me. And like, I'm glad that you guys are addressing that. That makes me feel good about just that people are thinking about some of these issues that we're not talking about to the degree that we probably should. Can I rapid fire a few others, and then let's let Josh and Keith go on a futuristic journey, because I know we want to get there. I covered that. I'm just going through my list here that I've got. Are any this is important, Errol, I have to ask, are listings being filtered out if they're banned on Zillow? Are they being banned in the app as well?
So
when they don't follow your policies.
Right. So our listing access standards apply across all Zillow properties. So if you were selectively marketing a listing to some buyers, but not putting that listing into the MLS, sharing with other agents, then if that listing ultimately was put in the MLS, if it didn't sell in your quasi-private listing network, then that listing would not appear in the ChatGPT operating system Zillow app. So if the listing doesn't appear on Zillow, it doesn't appear on the Zillow app on the phone, doesn't appear in the Zillow app on ChatGPT.
Okay. I figured that was the answer. I just wanted to get that out in public. Do you have plans to build... this is a stupid question I'm going to ask, because I don't understand this as well as other people, but as other, are you thinking about something for Grok, if that's the direction they're going, and Gemini, like what's the idea about it, wherever there's an interface
platforms?
Various platforms.
Yeah, I mean, our phones have been ringing off the hook this week for sure. And so, we're always interested in working with other companies, but it's evolving rapidly. I will give you one example where we did have a leading AI company contact us and said, "Hey, can we have an MCP with access to your data?"
What's an MCP?
So think of an MCP as the
he
AI.
knows. He's just asking for the audience.
But go ahead. Yeah.
See, let's see if I can. You can help me here. So think of MCP as like an API, the AI equivalent of an API.
Yeah.
Right. It's the way you get access to data. MCP is it basically helps the LLM understand the data and the data structure that it's getting.
Context.
Okay, so let's just be a lot of acronyms here. So the LLM is the chat interface. Okay.
Well, the LLM is the model underneath ChatGPT.
That powers correct.
Yep.
The model, and then the MCP is sort of the way that an LLM can then access data. It's like a door into the data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. API is the cleanest. Yeah.
Okay.
With guardrails.
So we've had leading AI companies say, "Hey, Zillow, can we get an MCP of your data that we can use?" And we've said no. Right? The difference between what we've done with OpenAI is it is a Zillow app and a Zillow experience with MLS attribution, fair housing guardrails, all of these things, right? It is Zillow underneath the covers, right? But we are not giving MCPs of our data to AI companies or anybody else for that matter.
Okay.
So,
go ahead, Keith.
It's just API, I think, is a perfect analogy. And you are saying no, just to be clear. Someone's asking, hey, can we just share API and share data, as opposed to building this whole thing underneath the covers? And you're saying no to that because it wouldn't follow the rules.
That's right.
Yeah, and it also wouldn't enable us to provide the quality of experience that we've been doing for 20 years.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Last question that I'm going to try and sound really smart with, and then I'm going to turn it over to. I'm going to go for it, Keith.
Yeah.
In a world where this opens up, where there's more than just Zillow on ChatGPT, how do you? I don't know if you can answer this, Josh, but how do you think ChatGPT reconciles what it wants to serve up in a search if it's 5 companies that all have the same MLS data? I'm trying to thinking about, like, I wanted to create something in a year and do my own thing because it sounds great, even though it'll probably never happen, but the point's the same. So like, how does that world work?
Yeah. I mean, if I could see into the future of AI, then,
you'd be selling your newsletter for a couple $2 billion a quarter.
I had to own the island I live on. Right? The metaphor I would use is, like, on my phone, I have the Zillow app and I have the Redfin app, right? Those two like there's not some under the covers, there is sharing information, right? No, the operating system is ensuring data integrity, user permissions, user PII stays in, within the context of those applications. And so hard to predict exactly how things will evolve, but from our conversations, I think that's the similar model that they're going to take.
Okay. I'll answer that one a little bit too, James, just because I don't know, I can have an opinion and probably not get sued. So the way to think about it is like search is very difficult because of the rules, right? And that's fine. MLS has created those rules for a reason. I would say maybe a little too protectionist, but I get why. But so there's rules. So search is very tough for like, if you're an agent in Olathe, Kansas, you're not going to build a search platform that's going to compete or make sense. But where you can win is hyperlocal, which is a huge component of residential real estate. So how are you positioning your business so that when ChatGPT and other language models are going to fetch information that is open source and out there, how are you positioning yourself as a local expert, and how are you doing it today? How are you understanding how these LLMs work and making sure that your business is there? Think of it, it's not a perfect analogy, and Josh will probably make fun of me, but if you think about how do you compete on Google, right? Well, you're not going to compete on search. Good freaking luck, party people. You're going to get your face caved in by people with bigger bankrolls than you if you're trying to compete on search. Don't compete on search. And if you want to debate whether we shouldn't have given away the data, blah, blah, blah. I don't have a time machine. I can't go back in time and fix that. So where can you compete? You can compete in the hyper-local approach the same way that you do, not completely the same way. It's going to be different. We don't even know what all the inputs are yet and how all of these different mechanisms will work. But start thinking about ChatGPT and others through the lens of how can I win hyperlocal? Search wherever you're going to search, but work with me, right? Like we've been saying that for a long time as an industry.
Yeah.
So I think that's the case.
Yeah, these are all good tools to help differentiate yourselves, market yourselves, use them to make yourselves more efficient, right? I think they're just more powerful tools than we've
maybe to put a bow on this part so we can get to the fun part. Like the people who are all up in arms about this, it's almost like saying, I don't want to be on the internet, right? Back when the internet first showed up. Like you could take that approach, I guess, but good luck long term. This is the biggest, in my opinion, innovation to hit this industry or any industry, hit the world since the internet. And I was like 26 and not that smart and couldn't figure out how to win in that environment. But I'm 54 today. I promise you I'm going to figure out how to win in this environment, because this is the big opportunity for every industry. And search, because of how complicated it is, I don't see any individual agent winning at that level. But there's other ways you can win.
I want to go one last thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, Keith and Josh, because I want to hear your guys' take on the future. I want to really go on a high note, because I know, Keith, you've gone down this rabbit hole a lot. So, Errol, I'm going to go to you for one quick second, because I think this is a conversation that's you and I deal in this world. I feel, and I want to make sure this isn't missed, because I'm sure I've irritated somebody at an MLS right now. Data integrity is incredibly important. I think it's one of the most important things that we've been able to work on the past 40 years through the MLS. That we have a repository of data, that there are guardrails, that there are things there. And I wasn't suggesting that we get rid of the guardrails. And I think it's important that we continue to think about that. Do you agree with my statement here about that this system that we've built is incredibly important in this world of AI, but figuring out how to adapt and protect at the same time needs to be an adult conversation in the room?
Yeah, I think you said that really well. We're very, very fortunate that we have the MLS system, that there is a trusted gold standard repository of listing information. There aren't fraudulent listings. The data is fresh. When there's a list price change, that price gets disseminated to everybody on an equitable basis at the same time. The MLS creates this beautiful liquidity and transparency that we have here that you don't see in other countries, other industrialized countries. You don't see it in the UK or Japan or France. And we're very, very fortunate to have the MLS, and it has been the work of a bunch of volunteers, to your point, over 40 years. And we all owe them a debt of gratitude. And I think that the thing that we're talking about here today is how do we ensure that MLS continues to be the gold standard, but we can also ensure that consumers can get the information, contact their agent through the medium that is the current medium. And that medium's changed over time. I mean, it was MLS books to terminals to internet to phone, a few years ago, maybe Alexa, right? This is just a new medium. And I think we need to embrace these new mediums as they emerge.
Okay. Well, and if you don't think human beings are already using GPT for search, like, please, party people, like, you are late. Like, they're using it today. Just because Zillow showed up in the pool doesn't, like, you got to think about it. It drives me nuts, and I'm sure that I will get hate mail. Hopefully they just send it to James. But like, if we don't start thinking about how the 28-year-old person who's thinking about buying their first home, right? If we don't start thinking about how that person is going to search and how that person is going to interact with this new technology, we're going to get lapped again. Like,
because that person is they're on their phone using ChatGPT
right now. And if we want to, if we want to debate, like, and I sound dismissive of all the hard work that James and Errol have both eloquently spoken about, and I agree. But if we don't stop debating, paint colors and start getting to really talking about, like, the 28-year-old that's doing search that's on ChatGPT all day, every day, and how that experience is going to be important and how we can influence it as an industry, we're going to get left. We're going to get lapped again. And I hate it when we debate things like, and I know it's important, but God bless, if we don't start thinking about that person and what they want and what they need, we're going to get lapped again.
Josh, take us down that road. So let's make that the segue. Where do you see this search going? Like, you're in this, you live this, you breathe this, you're the architect of this. Like, give the industry this perspective on, like, what does search look like? What does this world look like in the next, 3 to 5 years? Like, your long-term vision of where this goes.
And I'll do that. Before I talk longer term, I want to highlight, I don't think people realize how much AI is already doing inside the real estate industry.
Okay.
And so I want to talk just for a minute about some of the things that we've done. I mean, there's a lot of good work going on in other companies. But just a couple of examples. So Follow Up Boss, right, our CRM product, we have AI capabilities in there, one of which we shipped a few months ago called Smart Messages. And what it basically does is it looks over an agent's client list and their activity on Zillow, and it says, hey, Errol, Keith is getting ready to buy a house. We've drafted this personalized message from you to him. You should, consider sending this, and you can review it and edit it. You can change the tone and so on, so it sounds more like your voice, and you can hit send. And it's remarkable that agents are like, I never thought Keith was going to buy a house. And now, like, I'm in the car with him, driving him around, showing him listings, right? And so it's an example of, like, hey, there's a lot of these things happening already that are helping the industry be more effective and more efficient.
And Josh, I think the thing that's cool about that feature is that, so you were just talking yesterday to me about this notion of human in the loop, right? So the AI doesn't just send the message. He gets to review the message, maybe edit it. But as Keith makes edits to that message, the AI starts to learn what Keith sounds like when he's writing. So the next message that
does it learn profanity? Because that's would be in my stuff.
Yes, like, James, it does. Now there might be a toggle someday you could toggle that on and off, but
right. Well, we try to filter that out. But
so does my wife.
No, but Errol makes a good point. So human in the loop, I call it HITL for short, is an AI concept where whether it's like the idea of supervised learning, where a human is saying, like, teaching the AI, like, that's right or that's wrong. So and we do this for all of our AI. So for example, our interactive floor plans that are AI generated, a human being looks at every one of those to make sure that they're right. But I think as we, in the scenario I just described inside of Follow Up Boss, the agent becomes the human in the loop, right? Because as Keith said a few minutes ago, this is hyper-local, right? And you want that expert agent to help guide you through this journey.
It's hyper-local and hyper-personal, right? Yeah. Like, Errol is a very distinguished communicator. I am not, right? So, like, my emails to my clients would probably look really different because I'm crazy Uncle Keith and he isn't. And so as as AI starts to learn your tone, your approach, do you use too many exclamation points? That's me, right? It's going to learn that, and the human's in the loop because we have trust issues, not because it's still learning and getting better. But the human in the loop it'll be faster and faster and faster, right? Where you're just
AI will make you more efficient.
Correct.
You only have so many hours in the day, right? The other example I love to talk about is a generative AI product we shipped recently called SkyTour, where we take drone video and we turn it into, technical term, we use something called 3D Gaussian splats.
Whoa, say that again. Hold on.
Whoa.
So, yeah.
3D
put subtitles up.
So this was something, Google wrote a research paper on this. And I think Zillow is the first company to actually ship a product that uses this technology. But it turns that drone video into an interactive experience, almost like a video game. And it's a phenomenal way to explore the area surrounding the home. You can kind of go from a bird's eye view down to the ground.
It's kind of like, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, because you're the guy. I'm far from it. But it's sort of like, because this may be recent for folks. It's sort of like Sora for property flyby, right? Where you get a really dynamic ability to sort of be Superman and fly around the neighborhood and take a look at things. Is that a fair?
Yes. There's one important distinction, though, where like Sora is effectively hallucinating everything.
Yeah, correct. It's all made up. This is real. Yeah, this is real. Yeah.
And the technology is super powerful, but in real estate, you can't completely hallucinate everything, right?
Right.
It would be one thing if the shrub is a different kind of shrub or something, right? But it actually has to be...
We're still talking about AI because you just said hallucinate and shrubs in the same sentence. So I was...
James, your California bias
I'm
is showing.
sorry. Yeah. Keep going, Josh. Keep going. Yeah.
Okay. So these are examples of like all the amazing things that AI is doing today, right? I won't spend any time talking about the Zestimate, but like the Zestimate is OG AI and continues to, do its thing. So so let's answer your question. So if you think back over the last whatever decade or so, we've been using AI to help us find things, right? Google search, right? I think we're at this inflection point where we're moving into AI helping me learn things, helping me do things, helping me accomplish things, right? And so, you can use the Zillow app and ChatGPT and experience this yourself, where you actually are having a conversation. And something, like this was really interesting learning for me, after I had joined Zillow, which is everybody's housing journey is different and unique, right? Some people start by looking for homes. Some people start with financing. Some people start with looking for an agent. And there's a lot of infinite loops, right? Like, I can't afford this house. My offer wasn't accepted. My wife didn't like it, right? And so there's a lot of these loops. But underpinning all of this is, man, you got a lot of questions, right? And your agent, assuming that you have an agent, right, is a great source of answers for that. But now you have this tool that can help, guide you through your journey and help you be more informed to have better conversations with your agent, right? And so, you can try this yourselves in the app, but you can start with like, what neighborhood? Maybe I'm going to move to Denver and I don't know the neighborhoods in Denver, right? And so this is a feature we've shipped in the app inside of ChatGPT that we don't actually have on Zillow yet. But it's like, help me understand neighborhoods, right? Like, based on my individual criteria.
And this is true inside ChatGPT today. So like, I live in Danville, California, and maybe I want to move to Nashville because I'd really love to move to Nashville. But I went into ChatGPT and I was like, show me neighborhoods within 15 minutes of Broadway or 20 minutes of Broadway that have similar characteristics to Danville, California. Magically, some things popped up, right? I think some of the angst for the industry a little bit, and maybe we could talk about this, Josh, but it's sort of, those are things that we used to do, right? That agents that like you used to need to call me for that. And so I'm really afraid. I have this fear fantasy around it because instead of looking at it through the lens of sweet, all of that stuff has sort of been enabled by something else. And so I could actually sell twice as many homes if I could get good at some of these processes, right? They're looking at it from, well, that's my value prop. And it reminds me of the noise that I used to hear around sort of access to listing data, right? It's sort of, well, access to listing data, that was my value prop. No, if that's your value prop, you're out of business,
really
right?
Good comparison, Keith.
But so like this feels to me like the volume is at 11 because it's starting to feel like something else is doing what I do. and it's eroding my value prop. Yeah.
I would say, Keith, though, your point is the right one. Every time a new piece of information is exposed to consumers, there's that same angst. It was listing data. It was sales prices. It was as estimate, right? The value the agent provides is not information gatekeeper or search engine. It's the other stuff. It's the negotiation.
The human.
It's the
human in the loop.
Yeah, right. So, the trusted human in the loop.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I just to add a comment, I have this, don't ask me why I know this, Errol. It's like one of these stupid pieces of information I keep in my brain. You guys were founded in 2005. In 2001, the use of a realtor on the buy side was 69% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys and everybody else and all this technology and all this innovation and all of this data and all of this consumer access. And now the use of a realtor on the buy side is 88% of the time.
Yeah. Use of as access to information has gone up. So is use of an agent. Yeah.
So just to make a point, like the people think it's the opposite, like it's going to have a negative effect, but it's ironically causing the reverse. I think there's so much information. I still want somebody to help me decipher all of this stuff. So, all right, keep going, Josh. Give us some other stuff.
So, okay, we're talking about neighborhoods, right?
Yeah.
So again, you can try this yourselves in the app. You're talking about neighborhoods, right? You're asking questions, you're giving it feedback. That map view, like we're adjusting that automatically with these different listings in there for you to look at. The part that for me is kind of really exciting is you can then just say, like, start talking about financing, right? Because this is what I think the biggest challenge most people have is how much can I afford? How do mortgages work? Like, what's the difference between pre-approval and pre-qualification? I don't even really have a good answer myself. I'd have to ask. So, I'd have to ask ChatGPT for that. And so, it's interesting as we've talked to people who are using this, like there's one user study interview that stands out in my mind of this woman she's like in the middle of the night, right? She couldn't sleep and she's doing this, like learning about all this while her husband is asleep next to her. Right. Like just trying to get over this anxiety that she had about like, I've never bought a house before. It's overwhelming. Right. And so this is an ever patient, ever persistent, knowledgeable source. But again, I come back to the human in the loop is always that great agent. Right. And these are all our normal Zillow flows underneath this. Right. And so ultimately that person is going to get connected with a great agent. This also works for rentals. Right. So like there's also great property managers out there that help their customers too.
I see ChatGPT or the search of the future is actually, so there's this old real estate adage, which I have made fun of most of my career, which is buyers are liars. And I actually don't agree with that. I think real estate agents, we aren't great question askers, right? So someone says, I want a big lot, and we just write down big lot instead of saying, what's a big lot to you? Because if you live in San Francisco, your idea of a big lot is very different than if you live in Waco, Texas, right? But we don't ask great questions. And so consequently, a buyer will say, has to be single story, has to be in this school district, and has to be within 10 minutes of the freeway. But they end up buying a house that's none of those things, right? Why? Well, because we maybe don't have the facility or ability to ask the right questions, some of these other things. But now you can literally search by, here are the addresses for my 3 best friends. I don't know how all this financing crap works, but I know I can afford $3,000 a month or whatever your number is. So here's the addresses for my 3 best friends. Here's what I can afford a month. Here's how much cash I'm willing to take out of the bank to do this. And these are my 2 favorite restaurants and my favorite bar. And show me every property that meets my bedroom, bath, and all this other criteria that we're used to. Show me everything that fits that. And I go from the
with
universe,
a white picket fence, and I want a yard, and
and stainless steel appliances and whatever, right? But so search now becomes not just property specific; it becomes specific to the human. And the human, all of us are. The beautiful thing about human beings is we all have different needs, motivations, wants, desires, and this tool. ChatGPT I'm speaking of now, right? And then, but it can do it inside or outside of Zillow. You can still use ChatGPT right now to do those same search parameters, and it will go fetch and do the work. Probably a little more efficient and a little easier inside your app, but there isn't any reason, like that's the future of search, period, full stop. Right?
And I think you're getting at one of the key reasons that OpenAI came to us, right? Because there's like, people are doing this today.
Right.
Yeah. And they wanted to have a better experience from a brand that people trust.
Josh,
I love it. All right, guys, let me, Errol, you want to throw some final thoughts in?
Well, I thought, Josh, one of the things you were explained to me the other day that would be worth touching on, which is Agentic AI, which seems to be where a lot of the action is. I thought it might be useful just to tell you about what you told me, because I think it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Let's see. Remind me what I told you. I need to know.
And now you know the show is live, everybody. Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. So
maybe explain what it is and why it matters. Yeah.
Yeah. So think of agentic AI as AI that has more reasoning capabilities and more autonomy, and that it can basically coordinate the action of other AIs together, or we call them skills, right? And so what you get with agentic AI is AI that can act on your behalf, right? You're always the human in the loop, of course. And it can look across not just large volumes of data, but it can think longitudinally across time. And then it has all of these different skills at its resource or at its disposal, where it can say, oh, now I need to go do this thing. I need to, talk about mortgages, or I need to talk about something else, right?
So it's thinking.
It's thinking is more proactive. And it can, in reality, it makes you a lot more efficient. Right. And so I think we're at this agentic inflection point where it's basically kind of emerging from, we've gone from search to AI that can work with you in a reactive way. This is now becoming more proactive and more capable.
So let me try and put that in. I think the example you gave me, and if I get this wrong, correct me, but I'd like to go see a movie tonight. Mm-hmm. And I'd like it to be an action film. So I sort of describe what I'm thinking of. I'd like it at a theater that's nearby. The AI gives me some suggestions. Great, get me tickets.
Right, and if it books you an Uber, it makes a restaurant reservation at your favorite restaurant nearby.
So cool.
So it's no longer just answer. So it used to be a search engine. I'll answer the question. Now it answers the question and then does it for you. And I think that is a really interesting shift.
Interesting.
Right. And I think this will be the next big change in consumer behavior, right? From find me something to do something for me.
Well, it's literally like what an assistant does today. Or like, oh, I want to go to dinner. And they're like, do you want to go see a show? What time? And
it's part of the reason people didn't love when ChatGPT 5 came out, because it's starting that process, but it slowed down a bit. And it wasn't just ask and answer. And people were like, wait, what do you mean you're thinking? I just want to ask and answer. Mm. And so some people even migrated back to the old version, but it's just the early phase of this sort of agentic. And agents, don't freak out. We're not saying there's going to be ChatGPT real estate agents. It's just the vernacular for the AI world is you have a representative who is thinking and doing things for you inside of this ecosystem.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, we got to wrap. So Josh, I'm going to go to both of you. Just any closing thoughts, comments, just anything you want to tell everybody? The world's not coming to an end. I don't know.
No, Skynet is not upon us. No,
not yet.
I'm really excited. I think there was a moment where everyone in the audience cheered because they saw what was possible. I think that for me and my team was really rewarding. But I think it just shows like what the future is going to look like and what's possible. And I think it's important for your listeners to recognize that like, we understand the importance. We understand the value of what you bring to the table, and we're advocating for that. And I think, we put a lot of time and energy, like advocating directly with OpenAI on the importance of all of this.
Okay. Before I close with you, Errol, there's a couple of posts you guys put up of FAQ and some answers to things. We'll put both of those in the show notes in the link so people can go read, because there's a lot of questions that you guys have already answered as well. And then Errol, closing thoughts?
Yeah. And if you like, James, Josh can provide some sample prompts that you can put in the show notes to play with.
Yeah, that'd be great. Do that. That'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be really cool for people to kind of go play with it. So
figure out what's possible. Look, I think that this is a really exciting time. We're seeing this explosion of innovation around AI. I think as an industry, if we embrace it responsibly and harness it, it's going to be great for our customers. And it's going to make our lives as the professionals better. So I think this is a really exciting time to be in this business.
Well, thank you for taking the initiative on it. I know that I know it's a weird time in the business and everybody's a little up in arms, but I also know that you guys will work with the industry in the way it needs to be to make sure that people are comfortable with it. So appreciate that. And Keith, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just as you're processing things in and around ChatGPT or any other technology, as an industry, this is not a Zillow comment this is just about, we have to get comfortable with the pace of technology changing at a rate at which we are not comfortable with. And we got to do some deep thoughts and meditation and get real comfortable with either getting very, very, very comfortable with the pace speeding up, or getting very, very comfortable with companies like Zillow and others making announcements like they made. Because those two things, they can't coexist. So we got to take some personal responsibility for how it got here.
I love it. This is a good closing comment. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. We genuinely appreciate it. I learned a lot today. And if anybody has any questions, we'll be able to direct them accordingly. There'll be stuff in the show notes. So
Josh,
appreciate you guys.
Get ready for a friend request.
I didn't give out your email addresses, so you're good. So.
Yeah.
Well, I'll use ChatGPT to help me answer them.
Yeah, you're good.
Thanks, guys.
All right, gentlemen. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, we haven't gotten canceled yet, but before we do, hit that subscribe button and tell a friend. Misery loves company.